Hey everyone, this is Mike. Today I'm going to be doing the rotation guide for Summoner, which is also going to be the last rotation guide that we're going to be bringing out for quite a while. Now, Summoner is another one of those jobs that has a lot of different little things that they have to think about to make their rotation come to life. Now, the problem with Summoner that I have with it is that there's still a little bit of a bug with the Firebird trance or the Phoenix summon, and also the way that their Aetherflow works, because it's definitely not as interesting as it used to be before. So let's take a look at all of the different parts of how to play Summoner, and then we'll kind of put it together when we go onto the dummy. So first of all, let's talk about this Aetherflow. So Aetherflow has now been changed into a skill called Energy Drain. When you use Energy Drain, you get 2 stacks of Aetherflow, and you can use this on either Fester or Pain Flare. Fester is single target. This is also amplified when you have dots on the target, so you always want to have both of your dots up. And then Pain Flare is your AoE skill. Now, outside of this, Energy Drain doesn't really have anything to do with your rotation anymore. So it's just a use it on cooldown, use it on Festers if you're going for single target, use it on Pain Flares if you're going for AoE. So kind of boring, but that's kind of what it is. Other than this, we of course have our dots, as I just talked about. We have 2 different dots, Miasma and Bio, I believe it's called. Basically, we want to have these on the target at all times. Now, there is a little trick that we can do though, which has to do with Tri-Disaster and Horde 2 trances. So the way Tri-Disaster works is when you use it, it will do damage to the boss, but it will also apply both of your dots. This skill has a 50-second cooldown, and your dots only tick for 30 seconds. So you might be like, well, I can only use this like once every minute. So I'll have to hard cast our dots, as we like to call it, once a minute as well. Well, that's not really true, because every time that you enter one of your 2 trances, you're actually going to be resetting the cooldown on Tri-Disaster. In other words, we're going to be using Tri-Disaster in our opener to initially apply your dots. Then after we had our Bahamut summon, because that's the first summon that we do, then we're going to manually reapply them by hard casting Miasma and Bio. And then right before we go into our Firebird trance, our Tri-Disaster will be up again, meaning that we can reapply our dots using Tri-Disaster. We go into our Firebird trance, thus resetting Tri-Disaster, and thus making it so that we can do the next reapplication with Tri-Disaster as well. And then by the time our dots are about to run out again, we're going to go back into our Dreadworm trance, thus resetting Tri-Disaster again. So meaning that we'll be able to use our Tri-Disaster for that as well. So in other words, we're always going to be using Tri-Disaster to reapply your dots, except right after we summoned our Bahamut. That's when we're going to manually reapply them. Other than this, we still have one last mechanic to talk about. Well, I guess the demi summons are a mechanic as well, but they're just basically tied to your trance, but you'll see that as we go. The other last mechanic are our pet actions that are also kind of tied together with our GCDs. So we have 2 different GCDs that we're going to be using for single target. One of them is Ruin 3, one of them is Ruin 4. Now the reason why I say Ruin 4 and not Ruin 2 is because with the new changes to Summoner, Ruin 2 is something that you basically never want to use anymore. Because the way Eggy Assaults work is every time you use an Eggy Assault, which is now a GCD, this will make your pet execute a single target or an AoE attack. But they're still stronger than your normal GCD, so you want to use these anyways. But they're instant attacks, meaning that you can weave, you can move when you use them, and every time you use an Eggy Assault, you'll also be given a further Ruin stack. Now this stacks up till 4 times, and will transform your Ruin 2 into a Ruin 4. Ruin 4 is your strongest spammable GCD, I guess you could call it. So in general, when we don't have anything to weave or no movement to do, we'll be spamming Ruin 3, but then when we do have to weave or to move, we are going to be using Ruin 4. Of course, if Eggy Assault is about to come off cooldown again and you need to use it, and you still have Ruin 4 stacks left over, you might want to use 1 or 2 Ruin 4s just to use the Ruin 4, because it is stronger than a Ruin 3. So that's kind of how your Eggy Assaults work together with your normal GCDs. In general, I like using Eggy Assault first if I need it for movement or for weaving or stuff like that. Ruin 4 second, and then everything else, when you don't have to move, you don't have to weave, that's when you use Ruin 3. Now, last but not least, we have two other spells that we haven't talked about yet, which is your Enkindle and your Devotion. So Enkindle is something that's on 2 minutes, meaning that it will line up with the rest of your general rotation, because your normal rotation is 2 minutes. This will basically make your pet execute their ultimate attack. In general, you're just going to be using this inside of your Dreadworm Trance every single time. Other than this, we still have Devotion, which is on 3 minutes, meaning that the first time you use it is going to be before your Bahamut summon. The second time you use it is going to be before your Phoenix summon. Now, the reason why I say before and not during or something is because both your Eggy Assaults, your Enkindle, as well as your Devotion are not available when you have a demi summon out. So you'd want to make sure, especially the Devotion one, because that one lines up right before your demi summon comes out, that you want to be using that one first, making sure it goes out, because sometimes there's a little bit of a delay on your pet, and then going into your demi summon. Whereas with Enkindle, this will always line up with your Dreadworm Trance. So you go into Dreadworm Trance, you use your Enkindle, you finish your Dreadworm Trance, and then you go into Bahamut. The way your trances work is a little bit weird as well. Dreadworm Trance is just a button, you click it, all of your skills become instant cast, and of course you reset Tri-Disaster as well. And then you can end the Dreadworm Trance using a Deft Flare, I believe it's called, which is that big beam of light. And then it allows you to summon your Bahamut. So after you do your Dreadworm Trance, you can summon your Bahamut. But then when we look at our Fireburst Trance, when we press Fireburst Trance, we immediately summon our Phoenix together with it as well. So that's why I think it's a little bit weird. I would have much rather seen it that Dreadworm Trance would actually summon your Bahamut immediately as well. But maybe they'll do that further down the line or in 6.0, something like that. So general overview of Summoner would be as follows. We open up with our Dreadworm Trance. We make sure that our Eggy Assaults are on cooldown. We use our stuff like our Enkindle, our Devotion. Then once that's all used, we use our Death Flare, we summon our Bahamut, Enkindle our Bahamut, because every time you do a demi summon, you're able to use their Enkindle twice. Then after that's all done, we make sure that we reapply our dots manually. Right before we go into our Fireburst Trance, we are going to be using our Tri-Disaster to reapply our dots right before going into Fireburst Trance. Then Fireburst Trance does resets our Tri-Disaster. So we just do our Phoenix stuff, we press our Phoenix buttons, we Enkindle our Phoenix. Then again we go into our cooldown phase where we are going to be using Tri-Disaster to reset our dots. And then by the time our dots are about to tick out again, Dreadworm Trance will be back, so we use Dreadworm Trance to reset Tri-Disaster, we use Tri-Disaster to reapply our dots, we have our Enkindle again for our normal pet, we use a Death Flare, then we go into Bahamut, and it just repeats like that. The only thing that really changes in the 2-minute rotation is where you'll be using your Devotion. And then of course in between all of this you want to be using your Eggy Assaults to make sure that they don't overcap, use your Ruin Force to dump those stacks as well, and then of course use your Energy Drain to keep that going. That's kind of all the theory behind it. Let's go to the dummy and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So for our opener, we are going to be precasting a Ruin 3. We're gonna start by putting our Eggy Assaults on cooldown. Gonna go into our Dreadworm Trance. Now since Dreadworm Trance does not give you a damage buff anymore, we can pretty much just use our Eggy Assaults inside the Dreadworm Trance as well. Then going out of our Dreadworm Trance to summon Big Boy Bahamut. Every time we don't have anything special to cast, we basically just use Ruin 3, because that's kind of like our filler move, so to speak. And then we can finish our Dreadworm Trance like that. Now, as you can see, our dots are about to fall off. Now, because I have too much spell speed, I'm gonna lose my dot up time for just a split second here, but not too long. Then making sure I keep using my Eggy Assaults. Now, as you can see, I have a stack of Ruin 4 over here, further Ruin. And I have 3 stacks right now, so I'm gonna dump a stack so that I don't overcap my Ruin Force. Because I don't want to do that, because that's not good. Now, over here, our Fireburst Trance is up. But we're actually going to wait with using it for a few seconds. Because Fireburst Trance is 55 seconds and we do have a 2-minute rotation. Now, as you can see, I did something right here which you would normally not do, and that is a triple weave. The reason why we triple weave is because Phoenix is a bit retarded, and when you summon him, he doesn't react for a little while. which is why we do that triple weave. If they fix this into the coming patch, which I'm pretty sure they will, we won't have the triple weave for Phoenix anymore. Kind of like what we do with our Bahamut. Bahamut used to have this problem as well, but they fixed this in 5.1. So I'm pretty sure they'll fix that for Phoenix as well. But for now, as long as Phoenix is a bit dumb, we're gonna have to be using our like a triple weave when we go into our Fireburst trance, because otherwise Phoenix is gonna be unresponsive for 1 GCD, and you're going to be missing a auto attack from Phoenix because of that. And then right here, we are about to go back into our Dreadworm trance. As you can see, our dot is about to run out. We go into Dreadworm, we can refresh the dot using our Dreadworm trance. And then we can go back into our Bahamut. And then of course we also used our Enkindle, because Enkindle comes up every time that your Dreadworm trance is ready, just about. And I should have actually waited with this, because I dumped too many stacks. So that wasn't that good. So I used the Ruin 2 where I actually shouldn't have used it if I would have just saved a stack of Ruin 4. Or a further Ruin, I guess you could call it. Now over here we're approaching the 3-minute mark in our rotation, meaning that our Devotion is going to be up again. So right before we summon our Phoenix, we are actually going to be using Devotion to get that thing on our party members before we summon the Phoenix, because when the Phoenix is out we can't use Devotion. And it also neatly lines up with all of the other stuff. So there we go, triple weave for the Phoenix again. And then we just do our normal Phoenix stuff. Making sure we use our Enkindle Phoenix whenever that comes up as well. Basically you can use 2 Enkindles of your demi summons per summon. So make sure that you use those. And then right here we're about to refresh our dots again. There we go. Going to be using some Ruin 4 stacks, because otherwise we're going to be overcapping those stacks, because our Eggy Assaults are coming back up again. There we go. This time I am going to save enough stacks going into our Bahamut window, so I don't have to use a Ruin 2 basically. And then we just have a few seconds left. Go into our Dreadworm trance. We wait for our Enkindle to come up again. There we go. Then we go into our Bahamut, because we do want to be using that Enkindle as soon as possible, because when Bahamut is out we can't use that Enkindle, of course. So that's why we want to be using that Enkindle Bahamut a second time. And then it's about time we refresh our dots again. I refreshed them a little bit too soon, but it's not too big of a problem. And then of course, like, I'm just using these Eggy actions on cooldown pretty much, but you're also just able to use them for when you want to weave, when you want to move, because like they're instant casts as well, so they give you a lot of mobility as well, which is something that Summoner was severely lacking. But right now with the changes, Summoner is actually very mobile. And then again, Fireburst trance, we're just gonna triple weave into this one. And that's pretty much the rotation from here on out. We're pretty much going to be going back to the beginning, as our next Devotion is going to line up with our Bahamut again. So we're just going to be using our Devotion before we summon Bahamut. And then it just kind of repeats itself from there. Using our Eggy Assaults, refreshing with Tri-Disaster. Gonna dump 1 stack. Actually, I should have done 2. Because now we used our energy drain a little bit too late, but that's fine. So Eggy Assault. Our Dreadworm trance is about to come up again. And then during the Dreadworm trance we're going to use our Devotion as well as our, what's it called again? Enkindle. So we use our Devotion. We can also totally use pet actions during our Dreadworm trance. So there we go. Finish the Dreadworm trance, summon our Bahamut. And then we're pretty much back at the beginning where we started off in the opener. So that's pretty much Summoner. It's a 2-minute rotation that is pretty much set in stone, so to speak. My spell speed is a bit weird, so my stuff isn't aligning that perfectly. I'm going way too fast because I've been playing a lot of Black Mage, so that's why I have a lot of spell speed. But it's a really cool, versatile job. Not only does it bring very high damage now, it's almost on par with the Black Mage, but it still has that combat res, so it's definitely worth taking with you into a party if you do want to have that extra res, but you don't want to be a res bot like a Red Mage or something like that. So, my opinion, current Summoner, really cool. If they fix the Fireburst trance thing where you have to triple weave into Phoenix, then I think Summoner could probably be one of the better caster again for me to play. Because as much as I like Black Mage, I'm shit at it. Whereas with Summoner, because it does have all of that movement, I'm actually a whole lot better with it because I can move. So yeah, that's pretty much Summoner. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.